Alright, so now let's go ahead and start creating our top coat layer, or clear coat layer, that's going to reside on top of the kind of two layers that I have right now. Just going to be kind of coating everything in this clear coat. So I'm going to come back into my master material here, and I'm going to just start somewhere up here and lay down a slab. And I'm going to drop in my diffuse albedo, and for this is just going to be transparent, translucent. So I'm going to give it a value of 0. And for my F0 value right here, the F0 value is the reflectance where the surface is perpendicular to the camera. So non-metals, this is going to fall somewhere between 0 and 8%. If you're looking at kind of a legacy result node there, putting in a value of 0.5 into your specular, for example, would have given you a 4% value here. So we just kind of have to change our way of thinking a little bit for some of these values, but they are rooted in things that are tangentially related, you're tangentially familiar with. So for this, I'm going to go ahead and just drop down a scalar node. So I can hold S to drop it down to create a parameter right off the bat, and I'll just call this clear coat F0. And I'm just going to give this a value of maybe 0.05, somewhere in there, and plug that in. I'm also going to just give this a transmittance to mean free path in case I wanted to give the material just like a bit of a blue tinge or something like that, or a yellow to tinge as if it's been aged. I can do the same thing as I did down below to make sure that this is going to be a kind of translucent material here. So I'm going to drop down my substrate to transmittance, substrate transmittance to mean free path, so that it's a bit more artist friendly, and I can simply drop in a color here. I'm going to plug that MFP into the subsurface scattering MSP, and then I'm going to drop in a transmittance color by promoting this to a parameter, and I'll just call this clear coat transmittance color. And for this one, I want this to be a value that's going to be pretty high here, so I'm just going to maybe give it maybe like 0.96, somewhere in there. Okay, and if I just leave it here, I should see that this is going to give me a coating on top of my layer. And oh, I forgot to add in a roughness. That's why it's kind of looking a bit rough like that, because it defaults to 0.5. So I'm going to go ahead and promote this to a parameter, and I'm going to give this a very low roughness, maybe like a 2% roughness, because I want this to be kind of very glossy, very shiny as it's showing through. So I'm going to just take all three of these parameters, and I'm just going to add this into my O3 clear coat group so that my material instance has something to work with. Cool. So now I need to blend this on top of the layers that I have going on down here. And this is why I said it's a good idea to kind of use these named reroute nodes so that I can kind of just quickly and easily see what layer is on top of what without having to kind of come up here, come down here. So do one last thing here, add a named reroute node, and I'll call this clear coat. I'm going to just move this up because I'm going to add a few more things to it, I think. But I'm going to make sure it's at least commented. Okay, so I want to keep this vertical layer operator as is, and I want to take the result of this and layer on my clear coat on top of it. So I'm going to drop down another vertical layer. And I'm going to drop in my clear coat here. And then for my top thickness, right, this is going to be the thickness of this clear coat, how deep do I want that to go? So promote this to a parameter, and I'll just call this clear coat thickness. And I'll just give it a value of maybe 0.2 to start with. It's just going to be, a fairly thick clear coat. Don't have a great way of organizing this. Maybe I'll just do that. Cool. And then I'm going to place the result of this into the result node here. So now I'm left with this, where I have a clear coat on top of a thickness of 0.2. That's why you can see it's kind of got darker than what it was before, because it's got kind of more of this material to kind of go through before it hits the next layer, which is my surface slab, which is only, this thick, which is then showing the kind of flakes underneath. So this is my clear coat, and if I kind of see this on top, I might have to just adjust some values here in order to get this to show up, but I have my material instance. And, oh, I see what happened. So I've only hooked up one, because I don't think I hit save here. There we go. Now I got everything back. Cool. So now I have a clear coat over top of this. I can adjust the thickness if I want the kind of mid layer and flakes to get closer to the top of the clear coat. Right, I got my clear coat thickness, so if I decrease this, I should see that, my middle surface and flakes get closer to the surface. Pushes further down, I have a thicker kind of clear coat layer here. And this is cool, this is great. But, one nice thing that you can do with the clear coat is, just add in, some dents, add in some smudges, some smears, because this has its own kind of reflectance to it. It has its own kind of roughness that I am able to adjust, which is different than the roughness of my flakes and my mid layer there. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the Fab Marketplace and just get some, imperfections. I'll grab some, maybe some Quixel Megascans imperfections and just add some fingerprints and things on here. So I'm just going to go to Window, Quixel Bridge. There's this imperfections category here. I've got some fingerprints here. I'm just going to try and find one that has some smudges on it. Once it comes back, there we go. Find some fingerprints that has some smudges on it, and something like this might work well. Something like this might work well. Okay, I'm just trying to look for some things that have some kind of contrast to it. So I was working with this one earlier, so I'm going to go ahead and grab the high quality, and I'll add this to my project. And I also want to maybe just grab, just some damage as well. So if I, just try and find a material or some material here that, just has some small kind of surface bumps and details to it. Maybe there's something under other. Could be something here in damage, but I'm gonna basically just look for an interesting normal map that's gonna be subtle, but is going to have, just a couple of bumps in it. So let's just see what I can find. So let's go to metal. Yeah, this might be subtle enough. So I'm just looking for, some scratches or something. Something kind of really just dig in to that top layer. So I'll try this one. And I'll add this to my project. And now I have a couple of textures to kind of work with. I have a normal map here that has some details, subtle details going on with it. And then I got some fingerprints here as a metallic roughness map. which looks something like this. So this is a couple of maps that I can use in my red and my green channels to get some smears and stuff going on. So I'm going to go ahead and use that and just start layering them on to my clear coat layer on maybe my secondary roughness. My main roughness is going to be this clear coat, 2%, and then my secondary roughness is where I can kind of add in some of these kind of fingerprints and stuff. So I'll grab this fingerprint. If I have it selected in my content browser first, and I'll hold down T and left click, that's going to create a texture sample node, but it's going to apply the texture that I have selected in my content browser. If I didn't have that selected, I could just find it in this list, no problem. So I'm going to use this, and I want the ability to probably tile it, so I'm just going to add a texture coordinate by holding down U and left clicking, holding down M and left clicking to the multiply node, and then holding down 1 and left clicking to get a constant. And I like to set my default values here to 1 whenever I'm multiplying something. So I'll just call this fingerprints tiling. And I'll promote this to a parameter as well, in case I wanted to swap this out with something else. Now I like to have some controls whenever I'm working with roughness or color or anything like that. So I'm going to just take my roughness, which I'm going to say comes from the green channel, and I'm just going to multiply that. Oops. And I'm using the green channel because looking through this, it looks like I have this map in my green channel, so that's where I'm going to pull it from. I'm just going to multiply this, and I'm going to promote this to a variable called fingerprints intensity, in case I really want to kind of increase their strength. And then if I want to adjust the contrast of this, we can do this with a power node. So whenever you want to kind of eliminate some of the gray tones and push them further towards the whites or further towards the black, a power node is going to kind of give us that ability to do that. So because I'm working with gray tones here, power node is going to be able to kind of shift that. If I kind of bring this up real high, you can notice that I'm still getting some of those highlights here. So I'm going to promote this to a parameter. I'm just going to call this fingerprints contrast. And I'll set the default value of this to 1 as well, because anything to the power of 1 is still going to stay the original value. And it's been a minute since I've saved anything, so I'm just going to hit save all just to make sure I don't crash. Cool. And so I have my fingerprints layer here, and I could go ahead and just drop this into a secondary roughness here, but what I'm going to do instead is I'm actually going to use a substrate haziness to secondary roughness. So if I have a haziness map or a fuzz map or anything like that, I can use that helper node to get my secondary roughness and my secondary roughness weight. So I'm going to take my clear coat roughness, which is my base roughness. I'm going to use this as my haziness, and I'll plug these into my secondary roughness and secondary roughness weight. Cool. Now I also said that I had some bumps and stuff that I wanted to kind of add onto this as well. So I'm going to use my scratched painted metal normal map, and I'm just going to drop this normal map in. I think this can kind of just add in a couple of chips and bumps and stuff that I can plug directly into this normal channel. So I'm going to just grab my normal map, just like I did before. I'm going to hold down T and left click to load in my normal map. It's going to choose the correct sampler type for me, and I'm just going to copy this tiling, and I'm just going to name this damage tiling. So So damage, normal, tiling. I'll plug that into my UVs. And like most of my other controls, I like to be able to adjust this after the fact in case I need to kind of push things. So there's a few, depending on kind of when you learnt Unreal, there's a few ways that we can approach this. I like to simply just use the flatten normal node now instead of appending channels together and doing that method. But I'm just going to use the flatten normal. And I'm going to add a 1 constant here. And I like to do a 1 minus before plugging it in here so that my normal intensity starts at 1 when it's the normal map that it is, and if I want it to go stronger, I can increase this to say 2, or if I want it to be less, I would bring this down to 0. It's just how my kind of brain works, so I like to kind of just set my parameter up that way. And then I'm going to squeeze this in somewhere so that my normal map can be fed in there. And I really should bring this down or something. Okay, so now I have some scratches and stuff kind of coming in here too on my clear coat layer to make it feel as if it's got some kind of damage happening. And then I also have my fingerprints layers on here as well. And my fingerprints layer might be a little bit hard to kind of see right now, so I'm going to just increase kind of their intensity. And I'll group all these in a minute. I forgot to do that. But I'll increase my fingerprints contrast and see if I can get this to kind of show. Don't want to push it too high. And maybe I'll just decrease my tiling just a little bit as well to kind of just spread this out even more. Just so we can kind of really see kind of this effect working. So if I increase my clear coat roughness up here maybe a little bit to kind of spread out the diffusion, or not the diffusion, the roughness. And then if I increase my fingerprints kind of intensity here, we can kind of see the kind of look now that we're getting where, you know, some of those secondary smudges and things are coming up. So I could have added like an extra layer on top of this for, say, dirt if I wanted to. But I think this surface breakup, just with the kind of roughness alone, is kind of doing a lot of nice lifting for me. And we also have that normal map in here as well to kind of get some of these kind of marks and stuff that would be appearing after, you know, years of kind of sitting down and people's keys hitting them and things like that. So we're able to kind of see kind of these marks kind of showing up as well. So with all this being said, like, we have a number of different kind of layers at play. We have a number of different reflection surfaces at play as well. We have all our same tricks and tools in our back pocket from when we're working with legacy workflows in terms of being able to adjust our contrasts of our roughness maps, of our normal maps, of our base color maps, etc., etc. So we get to combine our knowledge that we have, but just get to kind of apply it in a slightly different way to be able to achieve really nice, realistic results.